Good afternoon. My name is Yolanda Lewis, and today I'm doing my speech on homeschooling and why I don't think it's a viable option for parents or children. The central idea of my speech is that homeschooling limits a child's worldview and it keeps them from having social relationships that could make them better and more well rounded individuals. Homeschooling also affects parents in several ways. For parents, homeschooling becomes a full time occupation. If one is ambitious, their ambitions will have to be put on the back burner in order to ensure that their child gets the proper attention that they deserve. And also, it will change the responsibilities around the home. Some responsibilities may be neglected if a parent chooses to do this, and in turn, it can also cause dissension in the home. The curriculum for homeschoolers is also a challenge. The concepts of the classes may be too difficult for parents to understand. And the responsibilities not only include formulating the curriculum, but also doing performance assessments of their child, which could lead to non-objectivity when it comes to assessing the scholastic status of one's child. There are several things that kids miss out on, extracurricular activities being the main thing. This won't afford them the competition that will be needed for when they venture out into the real world. Now, a lot of proponents of homeschooling say that the lack of competition is what attracts them to homeschooling in the first place, but it doesn't give them the edge that they will need in order to make it in the workforce or in any other form of life after they leave their parents' home and venture out into the real world. A child's biggest challenge will be to overcome the lack of interaction from having the friendships and socialization that traditional school students have. If the child has special needs, this will also have to be something to consider because the parents may not be able to help them as well as someone in a traditional school setting who is skilled in that area. The lack of extracurricular activities and facilities such as math and computer labs are also a grave concern. Math and computer labs provide additional teachings that the classroom can't provide, and my concern for those that choose to homeschool is that they're not exposed to additional teachings through a lab service. Therefore, they will have to retain a tutor through some other means, and whereas in a traditional school, they could just go right down the hall to the media lab or the computer lab and learn what it is they need to learn. Colleges also may have a bias towards homeschool students. When looking over applications, colleges may favor those that went to traditional school as opposed to those that were homeschooled. Children and parents may feel a sense of isolation if they choose to go this route. Proponents of homeschooling say that there is no such thing as isolation if you surround yourself with those that homeschool as well and take the child or children on field trips so they can experience what they're being taught face to face like traditional school students are. But there is still isolation and negativity that arises from being a homeschool student. Therefore, parents should schedule time for themselves to unwind, and groups of homeschoolers should network together in order to not feel as isolated and like an outcast, because some people who don't understand why someone would choose to homeschool may treat the child and their parent like an outcast. So that's something that needs to be considered as well. The main complaint of homeschool graduates is that they feel like there was a lack of education in some areas, whereas traditional school students won't feel that there were gaps in their educational process. They will feel as though they learned everything there was to know, and a homeschool student may not feel that way, or may feel like they're not as fully prepared as they would be if they had gone to a traditional school. Now, I am not a parent, but I do feel that children should be exposed to all that there is to offer in a school setting. Now, I know that public schools aren't perfect. I'm a product of a public school, and I can tell you some stories, but there are also teachers, not all, but some, that do really care about the students. In fact, one teacher, Miss Smith, that I had my senior year of high school, is someone who inspired me to be the best student that I can be, and gave me that tough love, which I haven't forgotten up to this point. So there are good aspects to public schools, but there are also, regulations that one has to follow if they choose to homeschool. The state changes regulations frequently, so you have to keep up with that, as well as the school district not offering the resources that a parent may need in order to make sure that their child is getting the comparable education that those in the actual classroom are getting. So those are some big negatives, and just the feeling of isolation and depression that may come about for both the parent and the child when they're around each other all day, and they may not get along, or they may form resentments towards one another. A perfect example is Desperate Housewives, when Gabrielle was trying to homeschool her daughter Juanita, and there was no structure, there was no respect on the daughter's part towards Gabrielle, so therefore the homeschooling was a bust, and the child wound up going back to traditional school. And the lack of objectivity is another thing to consider when doing performance assessments. A traditional teacher will show objectivity, whereas a parent will not. So it's very important that a child gets the best education that there is, and is also in a situation where they're looked upon objectively instead of through rose-colored glasses. So that's my speech, and my sources that I used include the article Negative Effects of Homeschooling from homeschoolcurriculum.com, Homeschooling for Dummies, ehow.com's Negative Effects of Homeschool. And I also use these two articles, Reasons Why Homeschooling is Bad, which was found on the www.bozo.com website, and Is Homeschooling Good for Students? So I hope that my speech was informative, and thank you for listening.